Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 27th. This is the regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. Can I have an approval to approve the motion to approve the minutes of the October 13th, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections? All those in favor? Okay, that passes. Next, we have our report of the superintendent.
Okay, so I have a few updates to give to the board, and in the packet I had I want to talk a little bit about the surveys. So I had shared just a general overview of the surveys that we sent to families, to the students, and to the staff. And we have, in addition to those graphs, we have a lot of textual information that they entered. And we've been in the process now of coding all of that, so there's a lot more work to do. And all of that input that we received on the surveys is going to go into our next steps, because everything that we're doing is going to continue to be a work in progress. I think there's a lot of things that we're celebrating. 7 weeks of school with our students in person is awesome, but we know that we have some next steps to do in terms of refining what we're doing, looking at opportunities for some more direct interaction with kids and teachers, particularly at the secondary school. But all of that has to be very detailed. It takes a lot of time and thinking, because we do have limited resources, and to be able to do that with high quality is going to take some time. So we really appreciate the amount of participation we had with the surveys, and we are committed to doing those on a regular basis. So we will be able to identify trends and to see how that is going. There are a few things that have been repeated, and one of those is that the interactions, the connections that teachers have made with kids is very good, and the more that we can provide that, the better off it would be. There are still some struggles with the independent time on those days when cohorts aren't in, so that's something that we're going to look to find some creative solutions to doing other means. One example of that, I think, just want to do a shout out to the 5th grade teachers, all of which who have been doing live streaming. So they're live streaming from the classroom. They're piloting that with a lot of success. So that has been a nice thing to see over at CLS. I did want to also point out that, and I shared a picture of it, we did have our first off-season workout with boys soccer started. The weather was a little bit challenging in the last couple of days, but it was pretty cool to be in my office to hear a whistle and to be like, what's that? And there were kids, and that was very exciting. And we had the trainer out there. They followed excellent protocols to make sure it was done safely and smart, and there was a lot of positive energy through all of that. And the other little update that I wanted to provide is from the health department. There have been ongoing conversations about the toolkit that's been provided for what to do, when to return to school, like how long should people be out if they have symptoms. So I sent home a reminder to families that if students have symptoms, they do need to consult with a healthcare provider. It's everyone's best interest. We've been very fortunate in our community to have no cases, but we do have a lot of symptom expression. So we're constantly asking for children to be picked up and to be monitored, and sending them to the healthcare providers. There is a little bit of a supply chain issue with the rapid COVID testing in the area, so that has caused a little bit of a delay. But we do ask all of our students and staff who have symptoms, if the doctor advises that a test is needed and there's not an alternate diagnosis, we do advise them to stay home until those test results are in. So even if they have symptom resolution, we ask that they stay home while those results are pending. So I did send home communication about all of that. I think it's somewhat frustrating that it appears that we're being more strict with our symptom resolution, but I feel that as cases in the region, not in our county necessarily, rise, we have to take those measures and to continually to monitor that. So we've been really pushing that message hard. And we do have weekly meetings with the health department, and we share all of those best practices. And our nursing staff here has been phenomenal. They put together some scenarios, so I'll be sharing out to families a bunch of what if. What if this, what if that. The number one question that I'm receiving from families now is, have we thought about the holidays and what kind of precautions? So the decision was made that I will be giving some recommendations an education around avoiding those types of circumstances, avoiding travel to restricted states, or recognizing if that does occur, that will trigger a 14-day period where the student would need to go into a fully remote model of learning, which we can support, particularly with advance notice. So I'll be sending out communication there, and if there's any other decisions around that, that'll be made county-wide, and if it's not between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there may be something to look at after the Christmas holiday, depending on the community transmission rate in the area. That's really the number we're looking at. The Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health feels that the numbers in our area are very good, county-wide, at rates of about 0.9 to 1% in the county. Regionally, particularly across the river, there has been significantly higher. Once the number hits around 5%, they start to get a little bit more on the watch. So the county has been excellent in the last, I would say, 3 weeks about communicating with schools and bringing us all together. And I think, like everything, it's a learning process for them, but I've been really happy with the amount of interaction there. I want to do a shout out to the faculty. I shared an email with the board that I sent to them. None of this is what they were trained to do, and they're doing a really good job at holding it all together. There's a lot of stress because they feel that they're serving no population in the way that they want to, because they're doing it on a very strange schedule. But as much as we can, reinvigorate them and remind them of all of the positive, I think that goes a long way, and they're doing a really tremendous job with a lot of challenges. Finally, I was asked to talk a little bit about the work from the Curriculum and Instruction Office. So that position has now been vacant since pretty much the beginning of the school year. So I've taken on those responsibilities in addition to my day job, and there's a lot of significant things that have occurred. We were given a desk monitoring audit in the spring prior to closure, which required us to do a lot of collection of artifacts and materials related to how we decide how federal funds that we receive will be used. So there was a lot of data gathering that needed to happen to be sent to the state for them to kind of verify that we're following all the proper procedures. So that took a significant amount of time. That's been completed. The consolidated application, which is how we get our allocation for Title I, II, and IV federal funds, which is about $209,000 in grant money that we receive. That application is done annually, and it's due, I think, the end of September usually. Yeah. And that involves us working with the private schools that our students go to who receive special services, institutions within our district boundaries that serve neglected youth, which would be like Astor. And so we submitted an application on behalf of all of them, so there's a lot of conversation and calculations for disbursement of those funds, a lot of uploading. So that was, a group effort. I had some help, but that has been also completed and submitted. And now I'm in the process of looking at how APPR resolved at the end of last year. So the school year was interrupted. So the teacher evaluation process was also interrupted. There were many evaluations that were incomplete by the end of the year, so those had to be resolved, and then a rollover into this year. So that's all managing that as well, so that we can comply with the APPR regulations, which are in full effect this year, regardless of the mode that a school is operating in. And then finally, there's just been some resolving and evaluating the summer curriculum work that was approved, because those final approvals do come back through that office. So looking at that and getting access to view Canvas to see all those projects, because most of the artifacts that the teachers created are now digital. So that's been quite a process. I'm hopeful that we can fill that position because that would be a tremendous help. And that's all I have for my report.
Ask on the surveys, is there any way to split out 6 through 12 to the two buildings to see if there's discrepancies amongst the different buildings?
Yes. So behind the graph, one of the other questions actually identifies it by grade. So we've actually taken the data out by grade level bands, and we've given it to the teachers, and to each principal has their building, and we actually broke it out by grade level bands as well. So we do have that. Once it's fully synthesized, I'll bring back another report that'll be presented formally to the board and to the community. I just wanted you to see the overview graphs. But that is all. We have a lot more of coding in the background that's occurred with the data.
Well, first, thank you for doing all the work from the curriculum office. A question on the APPR. So that's in full effect as it was prior to COVID starting. What does that mean, like, for teachers that are remote, or like, is there anything about, can they be evaluated if they're remote, or how does that?
Well, we don't have any, we don't have any language in our APPR plan for evaluating that, so that's going to have to be an agreement that we reach. What this means is that we have to come up with an evaluation for each teacher, and all parts of APPR are subject to negotiating with the collective bargaining units. So that will be a challenge. We have a very small number of teachers who are in fully remote assignments, and so then we'll have to reach an agreement about how the observation and overall evaluation will occur. What they basically stated was every teacher has to come out with a HIDE rating at the end of this year, which means they have to be rated as highly effective based on our APPR agreements. So that is going to be a challenge. It's going to be something that we have to negotiate and stipulate for the small number of teachers who are remote.
And the surveys, I thought that we had a good number of responses. I actually thought the responses about things they've experienced was pretty interesting. I think we feel a little insulated in our Rhinebeck bubble, but just even to read the number of families that have lost loved ones due to COVID, many things like that I found, interesting in here. When all the information is gone through, how looked at again once you said the principals are going to be going through the questions and stuff? Is it going to be reported out on again?
It will be reported out in a formal report, and as well as the actionable steps around that. So some of the decisions that we make, so it'll be accompanied with, these are our recommendations for the next steps. And then the student one is going to be monthly, and the parent and staff one will be quarterly. So we'll have the data, but we're going to have more regular data for the students.
Will the students be getting feedback, or
I would love to find a way to do that. I think in all cases, if we're asking someone to share feedback, we should process that feedback out with those people who shared that. So I think if we're asking students to share survey responses, we should share back with them the results of I think that empowers them to participate in future surveys. Otherwise, you'll see the diminishing. Sure. So I would love to talk to the principals about how they can communicate that out, or maybe even, work with a student group, or maybe Rhinebeck Reality wants to report on it. I would love to work with them to figure out how to communicate it back out. I know someone in journalism who can help me.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our student recognition. We are happy to have some of our students who are recognizing with us today.
Yes, I'm really very excited that we have students here, because that's what we're in the business of, is making the experience great for students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our students and introduce to you, why they're being recognized. So in junior year, in the fall of junior year, the students take the PSAT, which is also attached to the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And we had 3 students who were recognized. And first we're going to talk about our commended students. And these are students who placed in the top 5%. So about 1.5 million students take the PSAT. And a commended student is someone who is in the top 5% nationwide of their performance. So it's really an exceptional achievement, and it's really a testament to natural capacity. Because a PSAT, in a normal setting, I don't know if it's your experience, is not something that you necessarily prepare for. It's a baseline, so this is a real commendation of a kind of a natural in the moment. And again, this was in the fall of junior year, and this process goes all the way to the spring of senior year. So so it's a long process. So we want to congratulate our students. So our committed student here this evening with us is Beatrix Briggs.
You want to do this one? Yeah.
So we have this certificate. We want to congratulate you, and we're going to take a photo. Smile. We'll go over here. And also, as well as the commended students, there's a series of filters that happen. And we're very excited to have a semifinalist in the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. And that is Mr. Cole Dixon. Of the 1.5 million students, Cole's performance places him within the top 1% of all students who took the test. So that's something to be very proud of. Congratulations, Cole. Congratulations. And also, for the, she's not able to be with us this evening, but we're also congratulating the second commended student, and that is Molly Freer. She's also a commended student. Congratulations. So thank you very much for coming and let us recognizing you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here, and congratulations. I'm sure it's the first of many honors to come.
And there's one more recognition, and this is a recognition of the board. And so at each of your seats, you will see there is a sweet treat for you, as well as a certificate recognizing School Board Week, which was actually last week. We didn't have a meeting. So I wanted to say to you, on behalf of the entire school district and community, that one, you put in a lot of effort, and it's particularly this year for those of you who are involved with the search process. That was many, many hours and hours. I think you did that one really well. But I will say, I want to thank you and appreciate your willingness to be courageous and to be open, in the midst of a crisis, being willing to consider new ways of thinking, even about the committee structure, about everything, doing that self-reflection. I think all of that is such a testament to your own commitment for growth. And it's a great model for the district. So I think, as far as boards go, you are top-notch, you're professional. But what I like most is that you're willing to do things and to take a risk and to rethink. And I think all of that energy is what's enabled us to be in the position that we're in, which is in a very good position. And it's because of your service to the community. So I just wanted to recognize you, and we have the little treat for you. But I think it's important to pause and to really honor the work and your volunteerism and your commitment to your communities. So thank you on behalf of everyone in the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Whitney. I'm sure you had part of this too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Now we have an opportunity for public comment. And we're going to move on to reports and discussion, and we have a board committee report for performance monitoring.
Okay, so we met on October 15th, and we covered several topics. First of all was the facilities project. Most of the major work is finished. There's a few punch list items. Then we talked about reopening. We just discussed the survey results. and we were given, a synopsis of the results. There were 300 responses. The survey data was going to be provided to principals for analysis, and report will be presented to the board from that analysis. We did come up with some questions for possible data collection, sort of dealing with homework when it's due, remote physical education, science labs, and the guidance and college preparation process. Albert had indicated that we will likely have snow days still because of contractual obligations that will require us to give back unused days. More planning is needed regarding days that would be a delay situation under normal circumstances. Probably going to use those as fully remote days just because of the logistics that are involved in having a delay. We talked about finance. First of all, with the capital project, there is still about $750,000 remaining between project money that has not been spent yet and allowances that have not been used. And a plan needs to be developed on how to use those funds. There are some projects and alternates that could be considered. There were some monies available at the end, more in the end of 2019-20 than at the end of 18-19. We increased several reserves so that to use some of those monies. There are some filings for tax certiorari's that will have to be taken care of, and the cafeteria fund is in the black still. It's less in the black than it was last year, but there's been a lot of changes to our cafeteria program due to the COVID situation. We have inventory left from last year, but also there's a free COVID-19 related breakfast and lunch program, and that has been extended until June 30th. So all students can receive free breakfast and lunch daily, and of course that affects the bottom line on the cafeteria program. Participation is increasing. All those meals are paid for by a federal program. We talked about the balance in federal funds, and a fund balance projection will be prepared for our December meeting. Tom had noted that the annual audit report was received that day, and the audit was done mostly by electronic means, and the presentation will be scheduled for later in the fall on the audit.
Questions for performance monitoring? I have some questions. The counters in the physics lab, they're being reinstalled? Was there a?
They were, the ones that were there at the start of the school year were temporary. There was just, I think when we did our tour, maybe you noticed there was,
Yeah.
it was like nice plywood.
Okay.
So it wasn't the actual,
I see.
it's like a denser, so those were temporary.
Okay.
And those have been
Okay.
replaced because I saw them in the hallway actually this morning, the old tops. So it was just so that we could open, they
Right.
put in temporary.
Got it, okay. What else? Snow days. So even though we've had a beautiful fall, I'm sure if everyone's looked at their 5-day, they saw that little snowflake on there for this week. So I know our staff, our families are wondering what is going to happen, 2 hours delays if they're remote, but Chancellor, what can you tell us about snow days?
Yeah, I feared that. I saw the forecast and I feared that question coming up. The challenges are a 2-hour delay is already what we're operating on at CLS to a degree, but we still have the before school. There's still operations happening, so that's a challenge. But doing a 2-hour delay for middle school, high school does not make much sense at all because it would be such a short period of time. And it'd be a much more productive opportunity if we ran the normal schedule, but did so through more of a synchronous remote option. It just makes a lot more sense than bringing people out on the road for something so small. And I also don't want to do something different for one building than the other. I think from just an experience perspective, that doesn't make sense for families, nor for employees to kind of have a different operating for one building or the other, for something that may just be, I think that since the state is, my opinion is, since the state is allowing us to have it as an instructional day, and since we could reasonably be set up for that, I think that we should look for days that would typically be delays. If there's like a certainty or a likelihood of a delay, we should opt for the fully remote day of instruction, so that we're not using a snow day depending on, we don't have no prediction of what they will be like. The one challenge that we have is that currently we don't have a perfect accounting of the extent to which there are suitable devices at home for our elementary age students. So I have asked the technology department and the principal to try to get some very specific of what the inventory is like at home, should it be an unanticipated delay, because we do have devices, we could easily deploy them. Going out is easy, coming back in is very difficult with the way that the charging station works through the cart. It's a very cumbersome process to do all of that. So we're looking at getting a much more accurate assessment of what's going on at home. Now that we have deployed devices 612, that reduces the kind of overlapping needs that maybe some families have. So we know we had about 53 families last year who needed devices at the peak of the spring. So now we're trying to look at the list of students who are opting for fully remote and to see how many of them already have devices at home because they're fully remote, and then go from there. I'm anticipating that number to end up around 2021, and if we have enough devices that we could make that happen, I think we would proactively say, like on Thursday, just take this home in the event it would need to be, and then we'll try that out as a trial run. So I don't know what Friday will bring, so we may have to make this decision sooner than later, but that isn't what my thinking is. I don't want to, in November, be doing a full closure day. It's going to be a hard sell to say school is closed for a day that would normally be a delay, unless there's anticipated power outages. It's very complicated. But because we can do a remote day, and if we are set up for that, I think that is the best decision. There will be issues of equity as it relates to connectivity and things like that, so teachers will have to be understanding and reasonable about that, but I think it's...
So it sounds like you're looking to probably not do any kind of 2-hour delay. Potentially. There is, yes. And there could be full on snow days if,
There
power's out.
absolutely will be and probably should be, just because of the logistics associated with a major weather event, and because we do have to use those.
Right. Right.
Because they're built in.
They're built into the calendar.
I think so we're all, there are 5 additional days that are built into the calendar. So if we don't close for those days, we have to give them back at other points throughout the year, which we could very easily do. I think what this will allow us to do is have a little bit more flexibility in our decision making if it could be a fully remote day.
So it sounds like the biggest challenge really is going to be communicating. Parents should be, if any kind of weather they should be looking for, we're going to use the, how should they be looking to be communicated with?
We're looking at cancellations, still using cancellations.com. It'll go out through School Messenger as well.
Website.
Because it could be different by building, could be.
Yeah, so in my mind, I was hoping that November 4th would be a good trial run for us to see what a fully remote day would look like for the elementary school, because I think we need to practice that. High school and middle school, very easy, because it's going to be the exact same time schedule that you would have had during that day. It's going to be the day that you would have. Like, that schedule is going to be your schedule. You're going to follow those periods. That's when the teacher works, that's when the kid works, so that is easier. The challenge is with CLS, the remote part is in the morning, so I don't know if we would be opting to start that remote part when the normal school day started for all. So that's one of the things that we have to sort out there.
And all our staff can work remotely from home?
That's another area that we have to verify.
Okay.
It's inconsistent in terms of they can
Yeah.
do it, but not everyone can stream video.
So everyone, like always with all of this, will need to be patient and understanding as we work.
Yes,
Through
for
snow
sure,
days.
the first time or two or three, we'll have bumps, but like we've done with everything, we will like get back together and sort it out and work out those bumps. But technology is a difficult thing in this region with connectivity issues, with access issues, with just access to time and space. Not every family is set up for an instant like change in decision. But just because schools are on a different schedule doesn't mean that the family is, and so there may be having to shuffle kids around, and that may not be easy with the weather. There's going to be complications. There is no easy or perfect solution for that. But we have been in constant discussions about it. When we see the little weather app, we were like, oh no, not Friday.
Okay, thank you.
But there will be a comprehensive communication that will explain all of that.
The capital projects, so we have a good amount of money left. So a couple of questions. One, can the only things, if we were going to do additional work, do they have to be on our alternate list already, or can they be something that has come up since that list was created?
Well, it has to fit within the scope, okay? So if you wanted to do, it doesn't have to come off of your alternate list. It has to be within the scope of the definition that was submitted. We left it very broad so that we could do things like, whether it be security, site work. So we left it very broad as far as that was concerned, you know, flooring, ceiling, tiles, things of that nature. So that was all throughout the project. You just couldn't go off in another direction and go and do something. You can, but you won't get aid on it. So they'll look at it and say, okay, it's a part of your project, but you get 0 aid. So if you decided to, I'm just making this up, if you decided to put a generator over at Chancellor, okay, we would not get aid on it. You could still do it, but you're not going to get back the 38%, 38.6% of that aid, because that wasn't the generator was specific to here, not over there.
So basically, so nothing would get aid on it, but we could do other
You
things?
could do it. You could, I've talked to Sheldon a little bit. I know we have a committee meeting coming up on November 12th, in which I'm trying to have him come up with some ideas. His ideas may be very different what other people do. He has a different way of looking at it. I think all of us should, you know, if you have ideas, is to percolate them up so we can put it on the list to consider. So, you know, my idea was that November 12th, we'd give a list of projects we think we could use the money for, or you can do nothing at all. You can save that money and help reduce the debt on those bonds going out. Just as we did at the end of the last project, when we had the big project, we had over $1 million, and we've been slowly using those monies up as part of, on the revenue side, money coming out of reserve to pay for that part of the debt. So it helps reduce future budgets.
So do we have to get approval for any additional work we're going to do?
Oh, yeah, any additional work, not to the voters,
Right.
not the voters, but that approval would have to go up to the state education department, and then they would review it, and they would tell us at that point whether or not the project, that part of the project would cover it or not. They'd also tell us whether or not the plans
And
passed muster.
when these ideas are generated, like, will that have to come back to the board to decide, or like if we're doing the work, or if we're not doing anything with that money, what will be the process?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, usually we have the building, the facilities committee. You know, I see this as being a strategic and operational planning. So it needs to go through the board because any change we make will have to come to you for approval because it would be considered a change order. So you have to be fully involved in this process.
I think Tom is right. I think that the Performance Monitoring Committee has identified it, it's like here's the state that we're in. Now strategic and operational planning does the visioning for that. I think that's a really good example of how the same like facilities is not a stagnant place. It doesn't live in just one place or the other. So that's a really good example of how that. So I think this would really be the decision-making done, initiated or proposals, recommendations coming out of that committee for discussion in a session. That seems.
What else? Cafeteria, Tom, I want to say again, because I know many years ago, I certainly gave you a lot of grief about the cafeteria, so you and Larry certainly deserve a lot of congratulations that we are in the black. So many years, the cafeteria was never in the black, not even anywhere close to being in the black. So,
Yeah, we ended up in the black without having to transfer money. Remember, we put money in the budget. We did not transfer those monies last year. They kept them in the general fund. They're in the general fund balance. We do have money in the budget this year, too. We'll have to see how the year plays out, but like I say, the number of meals have been increasing, so that helps out. And our last year, here's the big difference. Last year, the governor said we had to pay everybody their wages for their time and schedule. Now we're only paying for the time they're actually working. So that is going to help make, or it'll be more profitable. I don't know if it's profitable or not. It's too early to tell. But at least there won't be a lot of cash going out for not the work being done. Now work is being done and paid on an hourly basis. And it's working. I mean, and we're seeing it tick up. And the other thing that was really good is to see that any student, whether they're remote or in person, is free for lunch and breakfast. So as they leave the campus, they can take lunches and breakfasts with them, especially if they're leaving on a Friday and aren't going to be back to the following Thursday in this building. They can get multiple meals to take home with them. So, and they are doing it, and more that word is getting out there. And so we're seeing the number of meals every week go up little by little by little, but and I expect before long we'll have quite a few.
good, like I said, it's been a lot of hard work. I know we used to run about 70,000.
Yeah, I remember those years. I think I got a lot of grief from those years.
Albert, could you talk a little bit more? You mentioned November 4th. Let's say Friday doesn't happen as a weather event day, or one that interrupts school. But you mentioned November 4th as kind of a trial for CLS as a remote day. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we're looking at what types of activities would be to continue momentum in learning, like through a remote day that is a scheduled remote day. So the grade levels, I know, are meeting with Brett now to talk about that, but we're trying to see, like, how do we handle an intermittent, unanticipated closure event. So basically, we're doing a lot of staff training on that day as well, but the teachers are going to be expected to continue through the learning. So they're looking at other ways of being creative with that, so they're kind of building up their week with that time built into that. And then that's what's happening simultaneously as we're doing the inventory for what kids have at home to make all that possible. So that we're trying to get that done this week so that we know what we're facing, to see to what extent we can have some synchronous time on that day. So it's different by grade level. I think the students in the upper grade level, it's been a little bit more seamless because they're able to self-manage that a little bit better. Our biggest challenges have actually come out of K-1-2 with all of it, because everything requires a tremendous amount of work by the provider, whether it's the parent or a grandparent, or there's a lot of juggling that's going on in that. And so then putting in the mix of our in-person kids on the remote is going to be an interesting challenge. So they're trying to be creative with doing some outside learning, but all of that requires an adult to facilitate that. That's the hardest part about remote elementary school, which is why our whole model always was to bring in our K-5 kids in more, because we recognize how virtually impossible that is. So they're trying to be creative with what that would look like on a bigger scale. So that's really what it is. The genesis of the day came primarily out of the need to provide some additional training and protocol enhancements. So we were trying to do two things at once, to also practice what remote learning could look like.
And have CLS parents already received communication about this, or will they be
I
receiving?
believe they did last Wednesday, I believe. Do we,
We'll have to, I don't know, but I'll,
Matt, do you know last Wednesday, did you know about that? No? Okay. They should have. So I'll double check on the 4th. That, I believe, was supposed to go out last week.
Well, the
Maybe
email on the
something-
4th.
Yeah.
We did get a communication on that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'm glad.
No, we did,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
About the day off on the Wednesday.
yes.
Yeah.
Not a day off,
not
a remote
off, just
day.
not in person.
Not a day.
Not in person.
On to good news. Have any good news? I think it's good news that our athletes are getting a little bit of time. Excited for that. I'm glad the coaches and the trainers, our athletic director made that happen.
I agree with you, Diane. I was really happy to see that, and I was extra happy today to see the second email from Dr. Davenport that they had found coaching for the girls, because that was a question when the boys, started last week. So I think that's great news, and I'm also really encouraged that the lunches and breakfast got approved through the end of the school year. I think as we start to see greater food insecurity, that is just really important. So.
I'd just like to say, I think it's great that we're still in school after 7 weeks. And, we see other school districts that are just starting in-person learning, or they're delaying in-person learning. And, we've been in school since the very beginning, and we're still in school without interruption. So I think that's really great news.
Good news is, there's so much kind of negative things out there, and certainly on social media, and I've seen so many positive things on social media about our school, our staff, and it's really nice to see that. What our staff is doing and what our school's doing, and it's
Yeah.
old business? I have old business. So we had, at the beginning of the year, when we changed our committee structure, we said we would kind of check in after a few months and make sure that we are happy with the way it goes and we want to continue it. And we hadn't scheduled meetings after December. So I just wanted to tell everybody to just give some thought to that. And at our next meeting, we'll talk about that and make sure that that's how everybody wants to proceed with the way they've been going. Another opportunity for public comment. Seeing none, any other? Our action items. Anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay. I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following consent items.
Second.
All those in favor? That motion passes. Can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the probationary civil service appointment of Susan Langle to the position of registered nurse at 6.5 hours per diem with a 26-week probationary period effective October 19th, 2020, at a salary of step 5, $54,478, prorated in accordance with the anti-salary schedule for 2020-21. This hiring is required for a 504 student for transportation purposes and to supplement the ongoing COVID-19 procedures by our school health professionals.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Amanda Al-Hazin as a short-term leave replacement special education teacher to provide specialized instruction to 2 homeschool CSE students at an hourly rate of $60. This appointment fills an anticipated vacancy by Allison Burton, effective on or around December 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of Allison Tawaski as a homebound special education teacher for a homebound student at an hourly rate of $60 up to 10 hours per week, effective October 21st, 2020. This appointment fills the vacancy created by Tracy Austria.
So moved.
Second.
Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Jessica Hudak to the civil service position of teacher aide assigned to CLS effective November 4th, 2020, at a rate of $17.94 per hour for a 6.5-hour day in accordance with the 2020-21 Annie salary schedule for 2020-21 with a 26-week probationary period.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Daniel Lehan to the civil service position of leave replacement teacher aide assigned to CLS effective October 29th, 2020, at a salary of step one, $22,854, prorated in accordance with the 2020-21 Annie salary schedule for 2020-21. This appointment fills the vacancy created by Kathleen Smith and her appointment to a leave replacement teacher assistant position.
Second.
Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Tamisha Greenhill to the position of central treasurer, effective October 28th, 2020, at the stipend amount of $2,664, prorated in accordance with Schedule E in the 2020-21 RTA contract.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept a donation of $1,500 granted by the Rhinebeck Science Foundation for the purpose of principal microgrants in the amount of $500 for each building principal.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? As always, we thank the Rhinebeck Science Foundation for their generous donation. All those in favor? Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept a donation of a snare drum, value unknown, by Dorothy Nelms to the music department.
So moved.
Second.
For a donation. All those in favor? Passes. No, exactly. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?